I'm Don Kay with Den of Geek, and we are here with the esteemed auto repair mechanic Joe Hill, who's here to fix all your cars at Comic-Con. But seriously, Joe, you are here to talk about a lot of stuff. Nosferatu is on AMC, and you're launching a new comic book line. You've got a short story collection coming out later this year. Where do you want to start?
Well, let's talk about the comics. I'm really excited. It's actually been developing for about 2 years now, and we only sort of just announced, I think, a few weeks back, that I'm doing a line of comic books with DC called Hill House Comics. And when I pitched it to him basically as Blumhouse for comic books. You know, it's just been this amazing time for the genre. You see it in film, you see it in breakthrough movies like, It Follows, Get Out, Hereditary. It seems like every 6 months there's a new, canonical classic, something that's going to last for decades. You see it in TV, with stuff like Stranger Things. Which has been so great. The Haunting of Hill House, no relation to the comic, but The Haunting of Hill House, Mike Flanagan, amazing work. And there's been some great horror comics in the comic book world as well, but I'm greedy and I always want more. And so DC offered me the opportunity to write some horror comics for them, and to curate a line of comics that would sort of all go together and have a kind of cohesive feel. So we've got a bunch of titles coming out. The first one is going to be one that I'm writing called Basket Full of Heads. We're following that with a comic by M.R. Carey called The Dollhouse Family. M.R. Carey wrote The Girl with All the Gifts, which is a great zombie film. It seems incredible that there can be anything left to say about zombies that would be even vaguely interesting. But Girl with All the Gifts is a terrific film and terrific novel. Then after that, we've got Carmen Maria Machado making her comic books debut with The Low, Low Woods. And I think that's going to be spectacular, and she's an amazing writer. We're working with a woman named Laura Marks, who comes out of the world of, she's a playwright, and she writes in TV. She worked on The Exorcist and Brain Dead, on the Hulu incarnation of Lock and Key, and she's doing a comic called Daphne Byrne, and then I'm doing another comic called Plunge, and there's also a backup feature called Sea Dogs, and I'm writing that too.
Right, sort of the secondary.
Yeah, so every issue will have. So Sea Dogs is sort of historical horror. That one is about this idea, in 1779. The Royal British Navy was the most powerful military force in the world, and it absolutely devastated the American Navy. What we had for a navy, our kind of ragtag collection of second-rate ships, and so when you think about it, it seems unbelievable we won the war. Like, how did that happen? And so my idea is, obviously it happened because of werewolves. So, right? It stands to reason. So we couldn't fight them in a straight up battle on the sea. But what we could do is we could put 3 American werewolves on board one of their most powerful ships of the line, and then eat the crew from the inside out. So that'll be a backup feature that runs in every single issue of Hill House Comics, from Basket Full of Heads into all the other titles, and will be one of the threads that we use to tie the comics together.
What would you say to fans of Lock and Key, your previous comic series, in terms of tonally, stylistically? What's sort of the difference?
Well,
aside from having different writers on board.
I mean, Lock and Key. So probably the biggest difference between them is that each of these stories are tightly enclosed, standalone tales with beginning, middles, and ends that run between 6 and 8 issues a piece. So it doesn't quite have the sprawl of Lock and Key. Lock and Key was 37 issues and ran for 7 years, and we're still going to do more. And I also think that tonally, it took a while for me to figure out the tone on Lock and Key. But Lock and Key does have aspects of horror. But it's also kind of a warm portrait of a family, and has a certain amount of comedy in it. Because it was 37 issues, it was possible for it to shift moods on several occasions. I would say, Basket Full of Heads is more of a grindhouse type thing. You know, it's more of you know, moving in the direction of the kind of gonzo horror that we sometimes see from someone like, you know, Sam Raimi. It's probably more willfully scary in a lot of ways. It's certainly a lot redder.
That's red is good.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, for sure. So when do we expect to see the first issue out?
So Basket Full of Heads will be out in October.
Okay.
That one is, so I should give the plot pitch. So Basket Full of Heads is about a young woman at the end of the summer in 1983 who goes out to collect her boyfriend from the island he's been working on. He's been working on Brody Island as a summer cop. So basically he's been directing traffic all summer. And the last night before they leave, they wind up house sitting for Chief Clausen, the head cop on the island. He has this beautiful house filled with Viking artifacts because he's very proud of his Norse heritage. And so there's like a rotting old shield, Viking coins, and there's an old Viking axe, and etched on the axe is Yggdrasil, the world tree, the deathless world tree. That night there's a home invasion in the house that they're house sitting. And, you know, her boyfriend, June's boyfriend, says, hide, I'm going to get the gun from the gun safe, and I'll let you know when it's safe to come out. So she hides for an hour and never hears a shot. And eventually she creeps out. And her boyfriend is missing. One of the 4 home invaders is still in the house. And you get this pitched battle. And to defend herself, she's got this. She grabs this Viking axe. And it turns out that the axe has improbable powers, which are then explored over the following issues. And there's a basket.
Full of heads.
And there's a basket full of heads. Yeah.
Hence the title.
Right.
Sounds like fun. Let's switch gears for a minute. Nosferatu is, I think, as we say this, about 7 or 8 episodes deep now.
Yeah, there's 3 episodes left before it's over. There's only 2 nights.
As we're doing this. So.
Yeah, at the time of recording, right. There's 3 episodes left to go. And it's actually only 2 nights because there's this Sunday's episode, and then the final 2 episodes play back to back. I believe. I'm pretty sure. So, and that's been a blast. I mean, I think it's had. I think it's been pretty well received. It seems like there's a core audience that seems to really dig what's going on in it. I love Ashley Cummings and Jakara Smith, who are the 2 leads, the 2 female, and I think they're really a kind of Butch and Sundance pair, and that we're kind of not so used to seeing a show carried by 2 young women, whose friendship kind of defines the program, and I think that's sort of, in a cultural sense, I think that's sort of interesting. Yeah, that's been Nosferatu's been a lot of fun. I know we're gonna do a big panel at here in San Diego, and talk about it.
Terrific. And you also have a short story collection coming out later this year. For people who may not know, Joe's career essentially started with a short story collection called 20th Century Ghosts, and the new one's called Full Throttle. And what do you want to say about that?
So Full Throttle is, my first published book was 20th Century Ghosts, and it was like 12, 13 stories. Came out in 2005 as a small press edition. And then later, my first novel, Heart Shaped Box, came out, and 20th Century Ghosts was re-released in 2008, a kind of sort of wide-scale release. And I haven't had a collection since then. My last book was called Strange Weather, and it was a collection, but it wasn't a book of short stories. It was a collection of 4 short novels. So this is 13 new stories, or 13 short stories. Material that I've written over the last decade. There are a couple new pieces that have never been published anywhere else in there. There's Mums, which is a story about a kid who loses his mother and grows a new one. And there's another one called Late Returns, which is about a guy who's very much in grief, who takes a job driving a bookmobile and finds himself lending books to people who are dead. And then there's a bunch of other stuff.
Must be hard to get them back, though.
Yeah, well, actually, so all the people he meets actually have died without returning books, and so they're all there to return the stuff that's overdue, which just goes to show that some people are very conscientious library patrons. Death is no reason not to return your book. So that's cool. There's a couple short stories in there in Full Throttle that I wrote with my dad. Throttle, the book opens with Throttle, which is a story my dad and I wrote honoring the work of Richard Matheson. And then close to the end of the book, there's a story called In the Tall Grass, which is actually going to be a film on Netflix later this fall, directed by Vincenzo Natali. I've seen it. It's a real punch in the stomach. It's real. It's scary like early Cronenberg is scary.
Good creepy story too.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Your dad, Stephen King,
Yeah.
is a champion of the short story. Has been for years and years, and it seems you're kind of carrying that on as a family tradition.
Well, I take a sort of farmer's view of writing. You know, there's this idea in agriculture that you don't plant the same crop over and over again in the field because it uses up all the nutrients in the soil. And I definitely think it's that it's enriching to write a novel and then write short stories and then write comics and then write some screenplays. And by shifting forms, you keep yourself fresh and you keep yourself engaged, and you don't get too comfortable either. You don't settle back into your comfort zone, which is a real recipe for doing bad work. So I wrote two very, very long novels back to back. I wrote Nosferatu, and then I wrote The Fireman. They're both 700 pages plus. And since then, I've really felt a need to kind of shrink, to work on a smaller scale. So I followed The Fireman with a book of short novels. Now I've got a book of short stories coming out. I think, I'm pleased to announce at San Diego Comic-Con that the next book will be a collection of my haiku.
I was going to say a bunch of limericks.
Yeah. So, I just collect my tweets.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.